Got Sam on the line. What do you want to ask him?
What metrics do you look at, and how do you think your metrics can help newer investors create their own metrics?
We forget that people's lives are tied to all of this. Communities, we track those things as well as, net worth and total debt to equity ratio and all of those other normal factors, but we also add in lives.
I'm Brian Briscoe, host of the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. And this podcast is different than everything else out there. I bring together a new and an experienced investor on each episode, and I let the aspiring investor ask the questions that they need answered. So if you're an aspiring investor yourself, you probably will have the exact same questions. Now, before we get to this episode, make sure you hit the subscribe button below and that little bell to make sure you get notified every time we post a new episode. And now, enjoy the show. Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe. Very excited for today's show. It's another one of our Ask the Expert episodes. We got two really great people on the line with us today. We have Sam Sells and Jon Weiskopf. So, gentlemen, welcome to the show today.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And of course, we couldn't have this show without amazing people like you guys coming on. So thank you. And as most people know, our experienced investor comes on first. And so, Sam, that's you today. How's it going?
Good. Yeah, it's a very, very interesting market out there. I'm sure we can talk about that on another podcast quite a bit, but yeah, I'm good. Good.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of where you came from and how you got into the multifamily space.
Sure. So before I started investing in real estate, I knew I wanted to invest in real estate even in high school. I graduated high school. I did a 2-year mission for my church. When I got back from that, I got into construction. So I apprenticed as an electrician, residential construction. Homes are really easy. Wiring, we did a lot of those. And then transitioned to commercial and industrial. September 11th happened, the world changed. And I started thinking about the military at the time. And eventually, about a year or so later, I joined the Air Force as a firefighter. And as a firefighter, I lived in Germany. Once I got back to the States, we started flipping homes. It's kind of hard to flip homes in America when you're in Germany. You can't do that if you have systems and people. I did not. So started flipping homes on my off days with a few buddies of mine. And I remember one of the guys who had been flipping homes for a little while, I found him putting in studs sideways, framing up a wall. And I was like, what are you doing? He's like, putting in some studs. Bro, they go up and down, man. For her to
not a good sign right there. Yeah.
Whoops. Like, oh my goodness. And this guy's making money. So I figured if he could do it, I could do it. And turned out this is pre-2008. So you didn't need the income. All you need was a heartbeat. And so I bought 2 single family fix and flips with a total income each year of about $25,000 a year. I was like an E2 or an E3. Made nothing. And flip one successfully right as the crash happened. And then the next one I turned into a rental, and no problem because our basis was always really low. So if the market crashes and you got a ton of equity, you have a lot of options. Right. And that was it. Continued to do that. Got out of the military, finished a degree, came back into the military when I realized that at Deloitte, everyone just cares about money, not everybody there. I'm sure some people care about something other than money. I didn't meet them, but they're probably there. And at the end of the day, I wanted more from life than just to be focused on how many dollars were going into my bank account. Went back in the military as an officer, got a master's degree in health policy, and then spent a little over a decade traveling the world, working with foreign militaries, foreign governments, helping them to build healthcare facilities overseas, restructure healthcare facilities, and then develop healthcare policies so that would be sustainable for the long term.
Nice.
During that time, I continued to flip homes on the side. And when they had a shock come to me in 2018, I was traveling all the time, like 2 weeks out of a month. I was somewhere across the globe, and I started having a lot of sleep issues and migraines. I think probably because I just
different time zone every week. And I get it.
It just jacks your life up, right?
Yeah.
And so
Now,
they said, oh,
when you're going places, and has nothing to do with real estate, just for my own curiosity, what types of places were you going to do your job?
yeah. So let's see. Afghanistan, spent a long time in Afghanistan, Liberia, Senegal,
Okay.
Chad. Chad a couple of times, got kicked out of Chad one time,
Mhm.
out of the country of Chad.
Okay. Yeah.
Different story for another time.
Yeah. I haven't got kicked out of a country yet. So you
Me
got one.
neither. I'm curious.
Yeah. Right.
We had a saying, TIA, this is Africa. So you get there and they're like, your papers aren't good. You're like, no, look, it's a visa. I got embassy approval. It's all right here, buddy. No,
Yep.
no, your papers are bad. I'm like,
Yep. Sometimes it has nothing to do with what you do, but it's all government stuff, So
yeah.
I know people who've been kicked out of countries, but it's usually, upper level politics. It's just like, you guys have too many people here. You got to send some home. And it's like, you're gone.
You're gone. Yeah.
I've seen that happen before, but yeah.
Yeah, we were in there and we'd be coming in after the SEALs or something we're in my unit, and the SEALs were always getting in trouble, bar
Mhm.
fights and stuff like that. So sometimes they would get people kicked out.
Mhm.
Besides that though, Asia, Nepal,
Mhm.
Korea, a whole lot of times to Korea, and Bangkok's a nice place.
Yeah. So most of the things on the other side of the globe, when I did all my traveling, I was staying in the Western Hemisphere. Well, I did Iraq, Afghanistan, everything else, but my last several years, I was staying in the Western Hemisphere. So anyway, yeah, I could see why you're having sleep issues, because it's, you leave here, you show up, and you're 12 hours offset. So
Yeah,
anyway,
and you're expected to work, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like you show up, and, you got an 8:00 brief.
Right. Yeah.
All right, cool.
It takes you 4 hours to get there because you're taking jeepneys in the Philippines from one spot. Anyways, yeah. Super fun, but yeah, short trips like that are terrible.
All right, cool. So all right, go on from there. That was a fun little, fun little day trip off of our, podcast, but getting back. So
yeah, so during that time, I grew just an incredible passion for helping others. And when you're in Afghanistan, you're looking at the mud huts, and you're in Chad, and you're looking at, which are two of the poorest countries on the planet, by the way.
Yep.
And you're like, what's going on here? Why is this? Well, politics is one big thing. And the other thing is you look at the home and what they're living in, and people, it's 2000 whatever, and people still are trying to get food all day long.
Yeah.
And kids are just trying not to get abused or dead. And so I came back to America. It's like, okay, what can I do in America that makes a difference, like a palpable difference? And so the military scared me. They said, okay, we're going to kick you out because you got migraines and sleep issues. And I'm like, you did that to me.
Yep.
It's your fault. So I, fought it, and they said, okay, fine, you can stay in, but you got to go to Alaska. And you got to leave in 2 weeks. So we just bought a house because they told us we were getting out. We left Florida. So we bought a house. We thought we were staying. Convert, complete, alteration. Had owned the home for 1 month when we left, by the way.
Yeah.
Good time. Turned that into a rental, and off we went. And on a 13-day drive from Florida to Alaska, I decided I was never going to allow anyone to decide when I move or don't move and where I'm going to live or not live. And by the time I got there, it's like, I cannot do single families anymore. It's never going to get me where I want to go. Sorry, Bigger Pockets. It's just a super challenge to do it in the single family space. And I was like, well, we're going to do multifamily. We're going to do something. And when I looked at multifamily, I looked at my big giant bank account reserves of $30,000. And I thought, probably not going to make it in apartment complexes. So we turned from that to mobile home parks. And that's what we started with.
Awesome. So what was that like, getting into that mobile home park space?
It was scary. I was living in Alaska. Of course, migraines and all this from traveling all the time. Right after I get to Alaska, they put me in charge of a 500-bed rehab of a hospital, largest contingency hospital in the world for America, anyways, in South Korea, Busan. And all of a sudden, I'm flying back and forth from Korea to Alaska. So I'm right back on that train.
At least it's a little bit closer, yeah. So.
At least I got to fly Delta over and over again instead of just bazillion
miles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Diamond all the time after that. So in the midst of all that, we decided on a very small mobile home park. Everything was recorded on paper, local in Alaska. The rents on mobile homes in Alaska is like $850 a month or $1,000 a month.
Really? Wow. Yeah. Okay. Was this Anchorage by chance? Or
Anchorage? Yeah. And you're talking the oldest, ugliest, stumpiest mobile home ever, because you can't get new ones up there.
Okay. I never would have guessed that, but I guess it makes sense. Always a little bit of supply and demand. All right. So first mobile home park, Anchorage. All right, cool.
A little threeplex. And before we close on that one, I got in contract. This is end of 2018. Got into contract to buy another one in Oklahoma. And so one for me to work on local to Alaska, Anchorage, and one for my dad to work on because we partnered. He had 80 grand in all of his entire savings, and I had $30,000. So we went all in, basically leveraged our futures all together. And my wife was going to kill me, by the way. But we got after it, and within 6 months, so I got that second mobile home park, 45 units for 475 grand, mostly vacant. And we took it from generating $5,000 a month to generating $16,000 a month. So my dad and I were both taking home about $6,000 a month between the two properties in 6 months. So when from zero to in 6 months later, $6,000 a month passive income coming into my bank account.
Yeah. That's a pretty good number. I don't know if you can hit that in today's market, but kind of a unicorn today. But so started with the mobile home park, which I think technically are multifamily. I have to scratch my head, and I think it is. How did you go from there to apartments? And I believe you do syndicate right now too, right?
We do. So we ran out of money after two, and at that time I'd already refinanced a car. I had refinanced one of my rental houses to pull cash out of that. And maxed out a credit card to buy a mobile home park. Just whatever you got to do, right? I don't recommend that. Don't do that if you're listening.
Do what I say, not what I do.
Crazy. I take big risks. Anyways. So then I was like, okay, well, I want to buy more. This is amazing. We should keep doing this. And we got some partners involved. And I was like, okay, anybody know how to put money together? And that's when we found out about syndication. And I did exactly what you're not supposed to do again. It was, I just went out there and started figuring it out via podcast and everything else. And so people said, I should get a coach. And I was like, I'm not paying somebody $3,000 to teach me how to syndicate, which is an idiotic.
Yeah. If you can find anybody who'll do it for $3,000, that's like, 10% of what most people charge. So yeah.
I was going to say, give me that info.
Who's doing it for 3,000? I'll sign up tomorrow and just, do a wrap around or something like that. I'll charge you $5,000 to get into his $3,000 program, but
Well, they're probably not good at all. If that's
true. But
they probably have never actually bought an apartment complex. So I did that. We bought 10 mobile home parks all together in 1 year. And then after that, we were steady and working on buying a first apartment complex. And then COVID happened. And when COVID happened, so we had ordered a bunch of mobile homes for our mobile home parks, and COVID killed it. We had a bunch of work going on in mobile home parks that killed it. All of those mobile homes, in fact, didn't get here until this year, end of 2022.
That's a long time.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
Talking about trying to tell investors like, they're supposed to be here in 6 weeks for 3 years.
Yeah.
Start thinking you're
sounds like Freddie Mac on my last loan assumption. Yeah, we're 3 weeks out, 6 weeks later, we're 3 weeks out,
And then you're trying to tell investors, and they're just like, you are so incompetent, Sam. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yep.
So anyhow, we pivoted from mobile home parks to apartments because we could still get debt on apartments. And we grew pretty quickly in apartments. We did 8 or 9 complexes in about a year. I don't ever do that much now, but once it's a younger man's game for sure. But you're also prone to more mistakes that way.
Yeah. Growing faster than you're able, that's something, and honestly, I made the same mistake. We probably closed on 8 properties in a 14-month period, and it was more than we can handle. So, iteration number 2 for me is, build the structure first and then start bringing on the properties, which was the opposite of what I did last time. Was let's just buy properties, and then, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work. But I get it.
Brian, would you change that if you did it all over again? Would you go process then?
It's hard to know what life would be like if we did it different, and so I'm happy with the decision we made. It was very much, it got me to where I am today, and I'm happy where I'm at today. So we didn't know much better. We were just really excited. We had people who were interested in investing, and there was a euphoria around real estate. And so yeah, 2020, we closed on 5 properties, and we closed on 3 the last quarter of 2019. So yeah, 8 properties in I guess it would have been a 15-month period. Yeah, we went from owning nothing to like 600 units, and it was a lot. So anyway, Sam, proceed, please.
Yeah, and the market's different now too, John. For rapid scaling, it's much harder now than it was then. I mean, it was almost like pre-2008 where you could just go get debt, and never showed my bank account to any. I didn't lie to any bank, but I also didn't show my bank account to any bank. In that vein. So that's kind of where we hit. We hit just about 22 properties, and then we stopped there. And we've been focused on doing what we need to do to make it through the issues of the day. Because now the market's in a tank, and nobody foresaw, 500 and whatever % interest rate hike.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy. Okay. So you active duty all over the world, mobile home parks, and then, own money to, raising other people's money, the big OPM that everyone talks about. And then you went from mobile home parks to apartments. And that's roughly where we are today, correct?
That's it. So we still have, I think, 8 mobile home parks, which ironic, now we're doing our redevelopment plan that we initially started 3 years ago, because we get access to supply.
You got more of the traders. Yeah.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yep. Finally. Apartments we're in the process of refinancing. We're in the process of moving stuff off the books and, doubling down, holding for a while until the storm is over, or at least stabilize. Once the market's stable, then.
It is interesting. I mean, I'm still in buying mode. And I mean, if you're tracking the treasuries, and if you're in this business, you should track the treasuries. They had like an 80-point swing in May. It was like from 3.2 up to almost 4, and anyway, back to like a 3.6-ish. But I mean, when you're trying to price debt out, and things swing by 80 basis points, it's just like, wow. So yeah, it does make things difficult. We ended up locking one loan at just the right time to get something that started with a 5 instead of a 6. But yeah, crazy how the rates have changed recently. But
crazy. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question, probably my favorite question on here. And it's, what's your why? Why do you do this?
So I really, and my brother, my business partner, we are really passionate about making a difference in the world. And so the way that we do that has been buying distressed assets. So like a 245 unit apartment complex that's 46% full, or a 56 unit complex that is 10% full, and then coming in and doing the heavy lifting that no one else is going to do. And so they either get a new slumlord who just rents out the units that are terrible and should not be rented, or they get folks like us who come in and completely change the property. We added governance, and we make a huge difference. And what people don't realize is, like, if you do that in areas, let's say in Dallas, Fort Worth, where you have a 200 unit apartment complex. So how many kids live there? How many kids go to school? Now the schools are judged based on transientness of their students. How many kids started and how many kids ended. And that's part of how the schools get rated. And so if you're in a very transient area, because people have really terrible landlords that are constantly getting kicked out and having to move, well, then those schools automatically get degraded. And they could actually have better teachers than your top tier school does, but it doesn't matter about the teachers, it doesn't matter about the education, it only matters about transientness. And so going beyond just making a difference in the community, we improve health outcomes, we reduce crime, because after school programs are the number one deterrent of crime, not cameras. Although cameras help, or the perception of cameras helps. I could go on and on about it, but we do all that within a capitalistic paradigm where we can make money. Right. And so if we can create $5-10 million worth of equity in a year because we came in and did all this work, that sets us up for a really good position when storms come like today, and we're only sitting on 50% LT because the property's doubled the NOI.
I mean, I've always talked about making communities better, but I never realized the impact on schools, and you're right. I mean, it is one of the things that all those schools are graded on. And it's one of those things that actually being in the military, that makes a lot of sense because close to military bases, none of the schools are, rated very high. And a lot of it is that turnover right there. So there's one other way that you help people by, taking the slums out of the slums, so.
Yeah, it's a remarkable difference. If you came with us to the properties before we bought them,
Yeah.
like during DD due diligence, and then you come back a year later, it's remarkable the difference.
Yeah. That's something I love seeing, the like before and after pictures, and just like I remember, this is one of our earlier deals, one of those 5 in that 1 year. It was a C class and it needed it was ugly, and
Yeah.
there's something nice about buying ugly apartments. But a friend of mine who invested went and drove by the property, happened to be in the area. And I mean, the text I got was like, oh my gosh, this thing looks like a dump. Is what he was calling. He's like, you guys made it look really good in the pictures. And I'm like, I don't think you understood the value plan. I mean, we're putting $1 million into this property. And if it was, a beautiful property to start with, yeah. So yeah, we buy ugly apartments and we turn them around and make them pretty. And I love it. So
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, last question for you. That's what's next.
Yes. Our last deal we did with an institutional partner.
Mhm.
So we made that transition before the markets got really
Mhm.
stupid. And so we like that model. We like working with an institutional partner.
Mhm.
They understand that one of them called it's a war. Your apartment complex is a war. It's
Yeah.
a battle you're fighting every single day. Sometimes you lose the battle, sometimes you keep going. And we really like that perspective of folks who've been in the game a long time and they understand. And because the business model is a little more complex, on occasion we've had, investors who are wildly misinterpreted. You're like, didn't you see the pictures and you see the 10%? And I tell you, this is the model.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all over our offering memorandums. We talk about it all the time.
Mhm.
But the complexity and the skill and the support that the right institutional partners can bring has been pretty incredible. We do like that model. We'll still continue to do things with private investors, but we'll probably double down on that institutional model.
Nice. Something that I'm intrigued with. I do like bringing in, the retail investors, as they're called, the private investors, but it's nice to be able to do both. So awesome.
And you learn a lot from those guys they got billions of dollars of assets. They've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
And we've learned a lot in the process.
I'll be sitting down with a couple of them in the next week or two. So going to be all kinds of fun, but
yeah.
All right. So shifting gears a little bit, Jon, how's it going, man?
Hey guys, thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for coming on. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I think it's important to start maybe early. I lost my dad when I was a young boy and really raised by my mom and my sister and a lot of influence from my grandparents. And my mom was a very hard worker. I remember going to work with her during Christmas and things like that. And that just instilled a lot of drive into me. I love tinkering with things. I love cars, Formula One, and that drove me to want to become an engineer. So went to school for to be an engineer, thought I was going to become a race car engineer. Found out I was really good at thermodynamics and fluid dynamics. Got out of college, and my first job was designing HVAC systems. A little different, but
not quite race cars, but they're close, right?
Close, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, they have something that spins around and makes noise, and yeah.
I got the opportunity to focus on energy modeling, and that was really my first foray into kind of the environment, sustainability, and it stuck with me that within the industry, it was very difficult for people to see how simple it was to do some things. And the world was painting these easy things as premiums. Right. And I think, Sam probably has a lot of that in there with his impact investing, right? There's a lot of things that people can do that don't do. One day I got a random phone call at work and was invited to interview for Apple. It took about 5 months later, I got a good job in their retail real estate and development group. And, my career kind of launched, but it launched to something that almost became too much. Like Sam, I was flying all over the world, constantly in Europe, constantly in Asia. I saw my wife 2 weeks a month, and COVID hit. And, I started realizing that my identity had become work. And that's kind of all I had. And I had reached something that I thought was going to equal success for me. And it wasn't. It was just more and more work every day. And I think Sam made a comment when he was talking about not let somebody making decisions for you. I think I really got to that point. Like, man, I work my butt off every day, and you go in and then somebody makes a decision that undoes the last 6 months of everything you did. You don't know why, right? You have no control.
I had the same breaking point. Yeah, it was similar to Sam. Someone's like, hey, you're going to Iraq again. It's like, oh crap, really? When? 6 weeks, and it's just like, yeah, that was the same thing for me. And I think a lot of people have that moment. But anyway, back to your story.
So, I think that was really it. I was good at buildings. I always, I designed power plants, renewable energy. So I had this piece, but I found myself just wanting more, right? That all the work that I would do and what I believed I was capable of doing, I wasn't achieving. And I think that's really where, then I became a father. My wonderful wife, gave birth to our son Wyatt right at the start of COVID, right when lockdown started. And, that was just life changing for me. I would work all day and be constantly focused on work, but I watched my wife, who worked all day, be able to focus on our son. And I couldn't do that. And it was eating and destroying me inside because it wasn't who I wanted to be. And I didn't really grow up with a father, and that wasn't what I wanted my son to have. So I think that, really led me to my why. I actually stepped away from work for 3 months for mental health. I was burned out, depressed, and just a miserable guy that nobody wanted to be around. And, within that, I realized that I could do more. I'm capable of more. And I wanted to have a bigger impact. And I wanted to not only just on my family, but others. And I just watched that they're just, like I said, in the industry, people aren't looking out for that. Sam, you mentioned something about Deloitte and money. All big companies, they all speak about their values, but at the end of the day, decisions are made.
Bottom line.
Yeah, they should put that as their number one value. We value money.
Yes, we value our profits.
And if you're involved in that, then we like you.
Yeah.
That's really what I think got me to change, Brian, is while I was out of work for the 3 months, I happened upon a multifamily real estate course. And I, sitting in that room and watching what was presented about the business plans and value added, I'm like, I do this every day. I'm just doing it for the wrong people and the wrong reason.
Yeah.
That's what got me.
Yeah. It's amazing when you figure out that you can finally do it for yourself. A lot of times, theoretically, I knew that I could go work for myself, but I never really had, the what, and when I figured out what the what was and realized that, I could work for myself and build something that actually helps my bottom line, man, I'll just say my last 3 years in the military were difficult. And it wasn't because of the nature of my job. It was because I was away from what I wanted to do. But yeah, well, cool. Well, Jon, we're going to do our best to help you for the next, 15 or so minutes. So, we got Sam on the line. What do you want to ask him?
Sam, thank you. I'd love to focus on your impact investments, because I think that really sums up something, that's very important to me. And I'm very impressed in kind of what you do. And so my first question is, watch the YouTube video of yours with Glenn and Amber Schwarm. You made a comment in there that one of your goals is to do something that is self-sustainable. And you speak a lot about clean money. How has that shaped your business, your investing model? We're taught as early adopters to this, what's our buy criteria? What can you handle? How has that helped you shape, and how can newer investors and newer folks kind of learn from that?
So we started out with the intent of impact investing. I put it on the board and was trying to listen to the voice that I call, God or the Holy Ghost. If you may call it something else, but the voice that speaks in our minds and says to us, hey, do this, and you feel good about that, and it's a good thing, then it's the right voice. If it's like, hey, do this, you're like, ooh, rob a bank, that sounds fun. Like, that's the wrong voice, right? You don't listen to that voice. But the voice that I was listening to is like, Sam, you have all this experience, bring that to America and go out and do something good and be and honorable and so forth. And doing it differently than everybody else can be awesome, or it can be completely like, no, you're an idiot. And I got a lot of those, no, you're an idiot. That's nice. You got a big heart, oh, fluffy butterflies and kittens. I'm like, I don't like cats, but This is not about, that I still make money. I want to make money because that's what creates sustainability. We sat it down and I'm like, I really want to make an impact, Dad. And let's see, he did too. And like, let's do this and let's try and make money doing it. And so it informed our buy box. It informed who we worked with, and it informed a lot of those things. And almost to a property, we have followed that every single time. And it's become more strong and more intentional as we've gone.
So Sam, just following up on what you said, there's a lot of emphasis put on neighborhood in the multifamily value add industry or realm, right? And a lot of people pitch, don't buy in a bad neighborhood, that's going to impact you. How do you kind of not allow that distraction to influence you? How is that affecting you and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, great question. I'll tell you, it does affect us. We don't want to buy a single place that's in the dead middle of the worst part of a community. Really, the only way that you're going to fix up a place like that and be successful is if you buy all the properties around it. Okay. And I'm not at that point in our venture. Like, if you want to change a slum, go buy the entire slum and invite all the people who are good or who want to be good to become part of that solution, and you fund it. And then you help create owners out of that. So that's a big goal of mine, a future goal of mine. But for now, what we do is we buy things that are kind of on the edge of that area. We do buy things that have crime in it. But, this place we bought in Dallas, Fort Worth, 180 units. The day we closed, the SWAT team was there. My brother Jesse was there. He's like, "Hey, Sam, the SWAT team's here." And it's like, "What are they doing?" He's like, "Hold on, they're trying to break down the door." And so he runs up there and is like banging on the window and like, "Hey, get out. They're going to knock down the door. I don't want to replace the door." The SWAT team's there with like battering rams and ready to go. And we just think differently.
Like, wait, guys. Yeah.
Wait. Don't knock on the door. That's a couple $100, man. Let me get this guy out.
Here, we'll open it up. Here's your key. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we're not going to put ourselves in, to get shot or anything like that. But the day that I went there for due diligence, I saw an active drug deal going on. There were 6 sewer leaks. The property smelled nasty. This is a 180 unit apartment complex. This is a big community. They did 0 community events because they would all break out into gang fights or other things. It was a tough deal, but this is the deal we did with an institutional partner who shared our values. And so SWAT team doesn't go there now. I mean, every apartment complex in America, police are going to come there at some point, right? There's always somebody doing something. It doesn't matter what level of society you're on. It's either going to be in the news or not, but the police now, they have their own office there. We have Boys and Girls Club there. We have dozens of charities that engage and work there. We have brought the whole community together and created an awesome community. And when I go there now, I don't feel scared or nervous. There's a playground there. There's a pool that hadn't been used in 6 years, full of sludge. When we got it, it's now fixed. People could swim in it. Outdoor barbecue areas. It's just nice. It's a really nice community. It's beautiful. And people are happy to live there. And you get there and they're like, "Oh, you're one of the owners. Thank you so much." And that stuff resonates,
Yeah. And I mean, I think a couple of things like that you said that resonate is the fringes of the neighborhood. Okay. You can make a difference on the fringes because on one side you might have, better properties, and on the other side you have kind of the slums. We bought something right in the middle, and, we found out shortly thereafter that it didn't matter what we did to the property. It was still in the wrong location, but, I think you're dead on. If you really want to make a difference, you kind of have to hit the fringes or buy the entire place. And most people who buy entire neighborhoods are coming in with bulldozers. So I don't know if that's exactly what you're trying to do.
Yeah, definitely not that, because even if you build affordable light tech, so low income tax credit places, low income housing tax credit, light tech, LIHTC. Anyhow, if you're building those places that fall within that construct and HUD's funding it, you're building a Class A apartment complex or close there too, but it's sectioned off and it's only for certain people who can get in there. And so that will never solve the affordability issue. It just will never solve it. And the only way for us as a country to solve it is to go after these places like the place that Brian bought. But not just one. If you just one person goes and does that, you can't fix it. There's got to be a lot.
Yeah. If everybody else in that neighborhood's a slumlord, it's just not going to happen. So
Good segue into my next question, which is I've seen lack of education in the construction industry for doing the right thing, putting high efficiency HVAC lights, right? And the unquantifiable impact that things like that can have on people. There's that saying, healthy home, healthy person, healthy planet type thing. How do you, from a business perspective, how do you look at metrics? What metrics do you look at? And how do you think your metrics can help newer investors create their own metrics in order to show the value that you're getting in, and for you to see what you're doing so that you can see where you might need to change or what's being successful?
Great question, by the way. I love that question. Not nearly enough people ask that question. If you own multifamily, you have an impact, period. It may be a good impact, it may be a bad impact, but you have an impact in the world, right? You just do. If you own any commercial properties for that matter, or even residential real estate, you're having an impact. But if you go to like my website, wildmountaincapital.com, you'll see right at the top, like our goals are change lives, build communities, and grow wealth, right? We believe that if you change lives and improve lives and you create thriving, safe, clean, thriving communities, the value goes up because it does. And in the process, you create wealth. It's the backwards from the model that a lot of businesses use, which is we're going to go make wealth. And if we make a difference, okay, it was by accident, right? So, and I'm being a little sarcastic there, or we forget that people's lives are tied to all of this. So if you go there and you see, on my website, building wealth and then changing lives, you can see how much money we spent. This actually needs to be updated. We spent more than $4 million. We're usually at like $1 to $2 million per project. Some projects are a lot more than that into the project, but change lives, communities, we track those things as well as, net worth and total debt to equity ratio and all of those other normal factors. But we also add in lives because there are lives impacted.
Now, I mean, along those lines, with John's question about, environmental impact, I mean, there's a lot of things that, fortunately affect your bottom line. Here's something that's a little hard. If you are paying for the water bill as a landlord, it's a lot easier to go through and install the, 1 point whatever gallon per flush toilets, the low flow faucets and everything else, because it does directly hit your bottom line. All right. Now, if you're individually metered or passing things to the tenant, that's where it becomes, a little bit more of a challenge because, it's not your bottom line. It's your tenant's bottom line, and it indirectly is going to affect your bottom line, right? So, that's one of those things that I think, a lot of people just kind of ignore for a bit. And it's just like, hey, it doesn't affect our bottom line. It's not going to help our NOI. So we're not going to go through and update, faucets and everything else. So anyway, and something else that I've been thinking about a lot lately that I'll just throw out there is just, sometimes you come in with that 2, 3, 4 year hold model, and you're passing, you do a lot of fixing up, you do a lot of good things, and you pass it off to somebody else, are they going to have the same management philosophy? Are they going to have the same, community value add values and whatnot? So anyway, for that reason and many other, I think I'm leaning more towards longer term holds myself. But anyway,
if I could just talk about that for a second. So long-term holds, so retail investors, very short attention spans. No offense, guys. Myself. Right?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, right.
I want my money back in a year or 3 months. I'm spending the lottery. Like I want that money now. And you're like, but you hold it for 10 years, you're going to 4x your money easy. Or you hold it for 4 years and you're going to do a 1.6x or something like that. You get past this craziness, and what happens if your 4 years is up, let's say this year, and so now as a syndicator you got to take this deal to the market and sell it at the worst time possible, and you may even lose investor money, but it's the business plan and people want their money back. It's like, we can be smarter about this. And to your point, Brian, we go and engage with like the city council, and so like in when we do these deals, because it takes a lot of hands and support. We went to the city council in Fort Worth, and they said, well, hey, are you guys just a bunch of syndicators who are going to sell this to the next guy in 3 years? because we don't want that.
Yeah.
We don't want you here
Mhm.
because, you're just in it for the money. You're flipping it to the next guy and you're going to go back on your podcast and brag about how much money you make, which is cool and all. But with that one, we did institutional partners, a 10-year hold.
Mhm.
They understand that it takes time to effectuate change.
Yeah.
And for the environmental model, we're doing solar now. It took me over a year to find the right solar company. And if anyone listening to this is interested, it's amazing. Okay.
Mhm.
So take your $30,000, $40,000 a month power bill and reduce it to zero. All right. Now you have a $7,000, $8,000 payment to the solar company. So you just increase your NOI, your net operating income by $23,000 a month, which adds $4 or $5 million.
Multiplies. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you just added $5 million of value to your property in 3 months. And then if you're not paying for the power and your tenants are paying for the power, you can become the power supply company.
Mhm.
Yep.
And let's say they're paying 15 cents a kilowatt, which is ridiculous because on the,
Mhm.
we were able to get stuff for 4 cents and 5 cents a kilowatt in DFW because it's privatized.
Mhm.
But in the government controlled utilities, it's 3 or 4 times the cost of the private market. And anyhow, so you can now give that power, charge your tenants. Not only did you reduce the expense, you're now charging your tenants, you're going to give it to them for less money, or you're going to charge them a whole lot less than what they're paying on the market.
Mhm.
So it's a value to them. Their
Yep.
overall costs for the unit went down,
Mhm.
but your income you dropped your expenses and you increase your income.
Yeah.
And it turns into a ridiculously good investment very quickly.
Awesome.
And you haven't even, and the value, there's more value there because you've added resiliency,
Mhm.
right? You've added more peace of mind for people, right? Power not going out in the midst of a storm or something like that. I mean, that's one of my favorite models,
Mhm.
Sam. So I'm glad to see that other people do it. I'd love to know what company you're using. If we can talk
Yeah.
about that offline.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of, we're going to have to move offline because we are about out of time. So that said, one last question for each of you guys to wrap it up. And Sam, you go first. How can investors learn more about you?
Yeah, you can find me on talking about clean money. John, thank you for bringing that up. Clean Money Sam on Instagram. I am not a very charismatic guy on YouTube and so forth. I don't know what to do with my hands. In real life, I laugh a lot, tell a lot of jokes. So you can find me on Instagram at Clean Money Sam. You can find me on LinkedIn, Samuel Sells. And you can reach out to me. My website, I have Syndication Launch, which is where we teach people how to do stuff like this. And Wildman Capital is our operational arm. You can reach out to info@wildmancapital.com. That'll come straight to me, or launch at syndicationlaunch.com. That'll come straight to me also.
Awesome. And we'll have all of that in the show notes for anybody who is interested. And John, same question for you. How can our listeners learn more about you?
Yeah, thank you. My website is blueeyedcapital.com. It's named after my son and my wife. And Instagram at Blue-Eyed Capital or at Jon_Weiskopf.
Okay. I mean, I got blue eyes too, so maybe it's also named after me. I don't know.
Never know.
Hey, who knows?
Welcome to invest. Brian,
there
you
we
might be my
go.
next investor.
Yeah. Do you have to have blue eyes to invest? I don't.
You do not, but you get a special if you do.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. I'll go sign up today, get my blue eyes over. But all right. Hey, thanks guys for coming on the show today. Very much appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Hey, if you like that episode, make sure to subscribe. But more importantly, if you haven't joined our multifamily educational community yet, which we call the Tribe of Titans, you are missing out. Get 30 days free by clicking the link in the description to this episode, or go to thetribeoftitans.info, and we'll see you there.